People love talking about millions, dreaming about yachts, passive income, retiring early, but the truth is, none of that matters until you've done the hard thing, saving your first $100,000. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The first 100,000 is a big deal, but you've got to do it. It's not about the number. It's about what happens to you while getting there. You stop being a consumer and you start thinking like an owner, and that's the real transformation. When I was young, I didn't have a rich uncle or some fancy Wall Street mentor whispering stock tips. I had to grind my way through college during the Great Depression. You learned the value of money fast in those days because you didn't have any. I wasn't thinking about compounding theories or financial freedom. I was thinking about not starving. That kind of pressure makes you sharp. And once you build that kind of financial discipline early, it sticks with you for life. People today want to skip that phase. They think there's a shortcut. They think they can trade options, flip NFTs, or follow some influencer's 5-minute wealth plan. Idiocy, pure idiocy. They don't realize that the struggle to save your first 100,000 is the best financial education they'll ever get. Because once you've done that, once you've fought temptation, resisted lifestyle inflation, ignored your dumb friends who spend everything, they can't take that mindset away from you. The first 100,000 changes how you see the world. It forces you to understand the math of compounding. It teaches you to delay gratification. It forces you to separate want from need. And once you've done that, the next 100,000 comes faster, then the next. And eventually, it's not luck or genius. It's just arithmetic and patience. People ask, Charlie, what should I invest in? And I tell them, start by investing in yourself, in discipline. Because if you can't save money when you make $50,000 a year, you sure as hell won't save when you make $500,000. The rich don't get rich because they're lucky. They get rich because they stopped acting poor long before they had money. They build the muscle of restraint. They stop trying to impress people who don't care. If you can live below your means and save relentlessly, you'll win. Not because the market loves you, but because time will. And time is the most powerful ally you'll ever have. When you save that first 100,000, you're not just buying stocks. You're buying freedom from stupidity. You're buying time to think, to wait, to let compounding do its silent work. So stop whining about how hard it is. It's supposed to be hard. That's the point. If it were easy, everyone would do it, and it wouldn't mean anything. Most people never save their first 100,000 because they never develop the character to do it. They spend every raise. They finance their lifestyle. They mistake appearance for progress. But you, if you can just cross that line, if you can save the first 100,000 honestly, then you'll never look at money the same way again. You'll realize wealth isn't a finish line. It's a discipline. And that first 100,000, that's your ticket out of financial mediocrity. Saving your first 100,000 isn't a finance problem. It's a behavior problem. People don't go broke because they lack opportunity. They go broke because they lack discipline. I've met plenty of intelligent people who can calculate the internal rate of return on a spreadsheet, but can't stop buying toys they don't need. It's not intelligence that makes you rich. It's restraint. In the early years, discipline matters more than returns. You can argue about whether you should buy an index fund, a rental property, or Bitcoin until you're blue in the face. But if you can't keep your hands off your wallet, it's all useless talk. Most people sabotage themselves before the compounding ever starts. They buy a new car because they deserve it. They upgrade the house, take vacations they can't afford, or start chasing every shiny thing that moves. And then they wonder why their bank account never grows. I've seen it for decades. The world is full of people earning good money and living like idiots. They think wealth is about income. It's not. It's about behavior. It's about what you do with the gap between your income and your ego. If your ego keeps expanding with every raise, you'll stay broke forever. When I was starting out, I didn't buy luxury. I didn't even think about it. I reinvested every dollar I could. The dollars you save early are soldiers. Send them out to fight for you. And if you keep reinvesting their offspring, one day they'll come back with an army. That's the real game, turning saved dollars into working capital. But before that happens, you must train yourself to stop killing your soldiers. And every time you buy something stupid, you're shooting one in the head. You can't outsmart bad habits. You have to outdiscipline them. That's what separates a rich man from a poor one. Habits, not IQ. People love to say money doesn't buy happiness. That's true. But financial independence buys peace of mind. And that's worth a hell of a lot more than temporary happiness. It's funny. Most people believe they'd suddenly become financially responsible once they earn more. Nonsense. If you can't manage $1, you won't manage $1 million. Money only amplifies who you already are. That's why I tell young people, don't focus on getting rich quick. Focus on not acting stupid. Control your spending like a surgeon. Avoid debt like the plague. And for God's sake, stop comparing your life to people who are worse off than you financially, but look better on Instagram. I've lived long enough to see people waste their lives chasing appearances. They think success is about how they look to others. Real success is when you can ignore everyone else's noise and quietly do what's right for you. That's the foundation of building the first 100,000. Ignoring stupidity and having the discipline to live below your means when the world is screaming at you to buy more. That's rare. That's powerful. That's how you win. Saving money is not an act of deprivation. It's an act of independence. Every dollar saved is a vote for your future freedom. It's saying, I refuse to be a slave to my impulses. The world rewards discipline. Eventually. Not today, not tomorrow, but always eventually. And when you finally cross that $100,000 mark, you'll look back and realize something profound. It wasn't about the money. It was about the man or woman you had to become to earn it. People love to talk about compounding like it's some mystical secret of the rich. It's not a secret, it's arithmetic. But it only works if you respect time, and most people don't. Everyone wants to double their money fast. They chase 10-bagger stocks, meme trades, or whatever speculative nonsense is trending that week. They don't realize they're violating the single most powerful law in finance, the law of patience. Compounding is nature's way of rewarding restraint. It punishes the impulsive and rewards the disciplined. You can't force it. You can only feed it. Einstein called compounding the eighth wonder of the world. He was right, but he forgot to mention the ninth wonder, how few people have the temperament to use it. You see, money behaves like a tree. You don't get shade the day you plant it. You water it, you protect it, you wait. And only after years, decades even, does it begin to give back more than you ever imagine. But most people keep digging up the seed every few months to check if it's growing. Then they panic when it's not. And finally, they give up just before the roots take hold. I've seen this 1,000 times. An investor buys a stock, it drops 10%. They panic and sell. Then they jump to the next hot idea. That's not investing. That's financial self-mutilation. Compounding doesn't reward activity. It rewards inaction. And that drives most people crazy because they think doing nothing means losing control. But in investing, doing nothing is often the most intelligent thing you can do. Warren and I understood that early. We didn't try to make money every day. We tried to avoid losing money most days. And when we found something truly great, we sat on it for years. The market is a transfer machine. It takes money from the impatient and gives it to the patient every day without fail. If you have $100,000 and it compounds at 10% a year, you'll double it in about 7 years. Then it doubles again and again. But here's the trick. Those later doublings are where the magic happens. That's why the first 100,000 is so painful. You're doing all the work before the compounding engine even starts to roar. It's like pushing a heavy flywheel. At first, it barely moves. You push and nothing happens. But once it starts turning, it keeps going with less effort and more momentum. That's what compounding is, a financial flywheel that rewards endurance. The only fuel it needs is time. People underestimate that. They think in weeks, maybe months. They don't realize how long the game truly is. I was still making smart investments in my 90s. If that doesn't tell you how patient you need to be, nothing will. When you finally let time do its work, something shifts inside you. You stop asking, how fast can I get rich? And you start asking, how long can I stay rational? That's when compounding becomes your ally. Most investors ruin it by interrupting the process. They overtrade, react to headlines, and try to outsmart time. That's like trying to make a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. Some things just take time. Here's the truth. The reason compounding works for Warren and me is simple. We let it. We didn't interfere. We didn't panic when others did, and we didn't try to be clever every week. You don't need brilliance for compounding. You need consistency, endurance, and the humility to admit that time is smarter than you are. So if you saved your first 100,000, don't ruin it by getting restless. Don't go searching for shortcuts. Let your money breathe. Let time do what time does best. Turn small, boring habits into extraordinary results. People think getting rich is about finding brilliance, some secret strategy, hidden formula, insider nonsense. It's mostly about avoiding stupidity. You don't need to be smarter than the crowd. You just need to be less dumb than the average fool. That's been my formula for more than 70 years, and it works just fine. Most people lose money not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack temperament. They can't sit still. They can't say no. They can't control envy, so they do something stupid and call it taking action. In investing, stupidity compounds faster than returns. You make one bad decision under pressure, and it infects everything that comes after. That's why I've always said it's remarkable how much long-term advantage people like us have gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid instead of trying to be very intelligent. Let me give you an example. In the 1960s, everyone was chasing conglomerates. Every CEO thought they were a genius for buying unrelated businesses just to inflate earnings. Wall Street loved it until it all collapsed. Warren and I didn't touch that game. We just watched from the sidelines while everyone else jumped off the cliff together. Avoiding stupidity is about resisting the madness of crowds. When people are euphoric, you stay calm. When they're panicking, you stay calm. That's not easy, but it's how you survive. The dumbest money in history was made during bubbles, and the smartest money was made right after them by people who still had cash left to invest. Here's the problem. People mistake motion for progress. They think being active means being productive. But in investing, hyperactivity is a tax on results. Every unnecessary trade, every emotional decision, it's a leak in your compounding engine. When I look back, some of the best decisions we ever made were the ones where we simply did nothing. We just sat there. While others were busy trying to outsmart each other, we were quietly letting the math work in our favor. It's not exciting. It's not glamorous, but it's profitable. And that's the only scoreboard that matters. Let me tell you another secret. It's easier to avoid stupidity than to seek brilliance. The world is full of opportunities to mess up. Bad investments, bad people, bad impulses. Your job is to say no 99 times out of 100. Warren likes to say that the key to success is having a big too hard pile. If something looks confusing, smells wrong, or feels like it requires genius to understand, throw it in the too hard pile. Don't try to be a hero. The reason most investors fail is because they can't tolerate boredom. They want excitement. They want to feel like geniuses, but excitement is the enemy of compounding. If your portfolio makes you feel thrilled, you're probably doing something stupid. I've always said it's not supposed to be easy. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you something. The stock market is there to serve you, not to instruct you. But if you treat it like a slot machine, it'll gladly take your money. So when you're building that first 100,000 and every 100,000 after that, remember this. Your biggest advantage isn't brilliance, it's restraint, it's patience, it's the courage to say no when everyone else is screaming yes. Avoiding stupidity sounds simple, but it's a lifelong discipline. It means staying rational when it's lonely to be rational. It means missing out on quick wins to avoid long-term pain. And it means remembering that real wealth isn't about being clever, it's about being consistent. So don't chase genius. Don't idolize the latest financial wizard. Just avoid the obvious mistakes. Debt, greed, impatience, envy. If you can do that, time will handle the rest. You can't save your first 100,000 if you're addicted to what other people think. Most people fail financially not because of math, but because of psychology. They crave approval more than freedom. They want to look rich instead of being rich, and that single weakness ruins them. Independence, real independence, isn't about telling your boss to go to hell. It's about not needing anyone's permission to live on your own terms. You get that power the moment your money starts working harder than you do. But the road to independence is uncomfortable. It means saying no when everyone else says yes. It means living in a smaller house when your friends upgrade driving an old car when they buy new ones, skipping vacations while they post theirs online. And here's the kicker. You have to be okay with that. If you can't stand being different, you'll never be financially independent, because independence requires thinking for yourself. And that's a muscle most people never develop. In my life, I learned early that going along with the crowd usually leads straight to mediocrity. The crowd is emotional, impatient, and often insane. They'll praise you when you're wrong if you make money, and mock you when you're right but too early. Ignore them. They don't pay your bills. Warren and I never cared about what Wall Street thought of us. We didn't buy things to look smart. We bought things that were smart, and we held them long enough for reality to catch up. If you live by applause, you'll die by silence. The market doesn't care how confident you sound or how many followers you have. It rewards those who think independently and act rationally. Most people are financial prisoners of their own image. They need validation, and validation is expensive. They buy the car to signal success, the watch to signal taste, the house to signal achievement. They forget the only signal that matters is the size of your freedom. I've met men with fancy suits who couldn't afford a bad month, and I've met quiet people with modest homes who could live 20 years without working. Guess which one I respect more? You can't build wealth if your emotions belong to other people. If your happiness depends on keeping up with them, you'll always be broke in spirit, even if your bank account looks full for a while. The irony is the first 100,000 frees you from that trap. It's the first taste of independence. It's small, but it changes how you walk through life. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop pretending. You start making decisions based on logic, not peer pressure. When you have a cushion, you can say no without fear. No to stupid jobs, no to bad deals, no to people who waste your time. Money buys that right, not because it changes who you are, but because it gives you the courage to be who you are. And courage, by the way, is the rarest financial asset there is. It's rarer than gold, rarer than great stocks, because it's forged in discomfort in those early years when you save and everyone else spends, when you're invisible while others are showing off. The test of independence isn't how loudly you defy others, it's how calmly you ignore them. You don't need to shout, you just quietly keep stacking cash, compounding it, and letting time do the bragging for you. The truth is, people who crave constant validation never build wealth, because they never build conviction. Conviction requires standing alone when the crowd laughs. It requires patience when the herd panics. And it requires knowing that in the long run, the scoreboard speaks louder than the applause. If you can save your first 100,000, you'll understand something most people never do. Freedom isn't bought in one big transaction. It's built one quiet, rational decision at a time. And once you've earned it, you'll never trade it for attention again. Most people spend their whole lives thinking like workers. They trade time for money. They call it earning a living, but they never learn to make their money work for them. If you want to build real wealth, you must stop thinking like labor and start thinking like capital. The difference is night and day. A worker asks, "How can I make more money?" An owner asks, "How can my money make more money?" That small shift changes everything. It's the mental line between the poor and the wealthy, the dependent and the free. When you're still grinding to save your first 100,000, it feels impossible. You think, how can I think like an owner when I barely have anything to own? But that mindset right there is the trap. You start building wealth the moment you act like an owner. Even if all you own is your own paycheck, save part of it, invest part of it, protect it from foolish risks. That's ownership. Ownership means your dollars don't sit idle. They go out and work shifts for you while you sleep, while you rest, while you ignore the noise. When I was young, I learned this truth the hard way. If you depend entirely on your labor, you'll always be vulnerable. One bad break, one illness, one layoff, and you're done. But if you build capital, real, compounding, quietly working capital, you build options. Options are what the wealthy really buy, not things, choices. Freedom to say no, freedom to walk away, freedom to think long term without begging for short term security. And to build that kind of freedom, you have to stop worshiping income and start respecting ownership. The people who look rich usually own liabilities. The people who stay rich own assets that pay them month after month without applause. Every dollar you save is a little employee. Treat it like one. Don't kill it with stupidity. Don't send it into bad deals or overpriced nonsense. Send it where it can multiply safely, quietly, predictably. Then reinvest its offspring. Most people can't do this because they're too emotional. They get bored when their investments move slowly. They get excited when prices rise and terrified when they fall. That's not ownership. That's addiction. Owning assets means acting like a grown-up. You accept volatility the way a farmer accepts bad weather. You know there are good seasons and bad ones, but you keep planting seeds anyway. Warren and I never treated the market like a casino. We treated it like a partner, a moody, unreliable, occasionally brilliant partner. And when that partner offered us something great at a fair price, we bought it and held on for dear life. You can do the same, even on a smaller scale. Own your index fund, your business, your education, your habits. Whatever pays you tomorrow for what you did today, that's ownership. The irony is, when you start thinking like an owner, your decisions get simpler, not harder. You stop chasing fads. You stop checking prices every hour. You stop caring what others are doing, because you finally understand the game. It's not about activity, it's about accumulation. That first 100,000 is proof that you've crossed over. You've moved from being a mere participant in the economy to being a shareholder of it. You've stopped renting your time and started renting out your capital. And once you feel that shift, once you wake up knowing your money is quietly compounding while you're doing nothing, you'll never go back. The great irony of capitalism is this: the less you work for money, the harder your money works for you, but only if you train it, protect it, and let it grow undisturbed. So think like an owner, not a worker, because workers chase paychecks. Owners chase freedom, and that's a far better dividend. If you want to stay poor, it's simple. Just let envy, debt, and impatience run your life. They're the holy trinity of financial stupidity. Let's start with envy. It's the dumbest sin of all, because you can't even have fun while committing it. Greed at least feels good for a minute. Envy just makes you miserable while someone else enjoys themselves. The world runs on envy. Social media, advertising, Wall Street, all of it depends on making you feel like you're behind. They want you chasing what everyone else has. New cars, bigger houses, pointless luxuries, all debt-fueled, of course. And you know what happens? You start mistaking other people's highlight reels for your financial goals. You spend to impress, not to progress. That's how smart people go broke. Slowly, beautifully, with taste. If you can conquer envy, you've already beaten half the game, because once you stop caring about what others have, you start seeing what truly matters: time, freedom, peace of mind, things money can buy, only when you don't waste it trying to look rich. Now let's talk about debt. Debt is like playing with fire while soaked in gasoline. Used wisely, it can cook your meal. Used foolishly, it'll burn your house down. Most people don't understand the difference. They borrow to consume, not to produce. They call it financial leverage, but really it's just impatience with a payment plan. Warren and I never believed in living on borrowed money. We wanted to own, not owe, because the moment you owe someone, they own you. You lose flexibility, you lose independence, and eventually you lose dignity. I've seen it over and over. People with fancy houses, fine clothes, and great jobs, living one missed paycheck away from collapse. That's not wealth, that's servitude with nicer furniture. Debt turns compounding from your friend into your executioner. When you owe, compounding works against you. Every month, every late payment, every interest charge, your mistakes multiply faster than your progress. That's hell in slow motion. Now, the third enemy, impatience. If envy makes you stupid and debt makes you trapped, impatience makes you broke. Everyone wants quick results. They want the reward without the wait. And that's why they fall for get-rich schemes that promise to skip the hard part. Compounding doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't speed up because you're bored. It rewards time and punishes urgency. And yet, most people keep pressing the fast-forward button until they self-destruct. The market, by the way, feeds on impatience. It sells movement. It sells adrenaline. It tells you can't just sit there, do something. But as I've said before, the trick is often to just sit there. You don't need to predict the next big stock or time the perfect trade. You need to avoid the self-inflicted wounds that envy, debt, and impatience create. That's the boring truth nobody wants to hear. The entire system is designed to make you forget patience. They want you scrolling, trading, reacting, because if you sit still and compound quietly, nobody makes a commission off you. You become too boring to manipulate. And that's exactly who you should aim to be, financially boring. The kind of person who's calm when everyone else panics. The kind who doesn't envy, doesn't owe, and doesn't rush. The world will call you dull. Fine, let them. Boring gets rich. Excitement gets wiped out. When you save your first 100,000, remember this. The goal isn't to look clever, it's to stay solvent. The goal isn't to impress others, it's to be independent of them. And the goal isn't to move fast, it's to never go backward. Defeat envy, eliminate debt, outlast impatience. Do that long enough, and wealth won't just find you, it'll stick. Most people never get rich, not because they don't earn enough, but because they never learn enough. They confuse effort with progress. They work harder, not smarter. And when their income rises, so do their expenses. That's why they stay stuck on the same treadmill, sprinting fast, going nowhere. You want to know why most people never cross that first 100,000? Because they sabotage themselves every step of the way. They treat saving as punishment. They treat discipline as deprivation. They treat money like something to spend, not something to keep. They can't delay gratification for more than 5 minutes. They think every surplus dollar must be turned into comfort or status, so they live in a loop of self-inflicted poverty. Let's be honest. Saving $100,000 is boring. It's slow, repetitive, unglamorous work. You don't get applause for skipping dinner out or driving the old car. Nobody congratulates you for not upgrading your phone. But that's how wealth is built, quietly, invisibly, through 1,000 small refusals. You save when no one else does. You invest when it feels uncomfortable. You wait when everyone else is panicking. You endure when it would be easier to quit. That's the difference. Most people fail because they confuse movement with direction. They're constantly doing something, but none of it compounds. They chase jobs, trends, and investments like moths chasing light bulbs. And by the time they realize the bulbs burn out, they've wasted years fluttering in circles. Then there's the emotional side. People don't just lack money. They lack temperament. They panic when prices fall and celebrate when they rise. They buy high, sell low, and call it bad luck. But luck has nothing to do with it. It's behavior. Saving your first 100,000 requires building habits most people simply refuse to build. Habits like saying no to yourself, ignoring your neighbor's new car, spending less than you earn every single month, learning before you invest, and holding before you react. The hard truth is, financial discipline is rare because emotional discipline is rare. And if you can't control your impulses, you'll never control your outcomes. There's another problem, attention span. People today have the patience of fruit flies. They want results instantly. If their portfolio doesn't grow in a month, they abandon the plan and chase the next one. Compounding requires decades, but people can't wait a few quarters. I've lived long enough to see every fad come and go. .coms, tulips, cryptos, SPACs, AI hype, you name it. Different costumes, same stupidity. People always believe this time is different. It never is. You can make a fortune slowly or lose one quickly, and most people choose the second option because it feels exciting. But excitement is the enemy of wealth. Wealth is quiet, patient, and painfully dull. That's why saving the first 100,000 is such a powerful filter. It separates the serious from the spectators. It tests whether you can tolerate boredom, resist envy, and think for yourself. Most can't. They quit before the magic begins. Here's what I've learned. Once you cross that threshold, everything changes. Money starts earning money. The grind turns into momentum. Compounding stops being a theory and becomes an ally. But you have to get there first. And almost no one does. Why? Because they underestimate the power of small beginnings. They think $100 here, $500 there, won't matter. But that's exactly how it starts. Every large fortune began as something small, protected by someone disciplined. People dream of being rich, but they don't want the character required to become rich. They want the outcome, not the process. And the process, frankly, is uncomfortable. It demands that you be rational when your instincts scream otherwise. But that's the price of admission. You pay it in discipline, not dollars. And once you've paid, you'll never want to go back to the old way of living because you'll know too much. So if you want to understand why most people never make it past their first 100,000, it's simple. They can't stand the boredom, they can't resist the envy, and they can't delay the gratification. The ones who can, they quietly cross the line, disappear from the noise, and let compounding finish the story. Here's the thing most people don't understand. Once you reach that first 100,000, everything changes. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because you do. The struggle rewires you. You stop thinking like a paycheck-to-paycheck amateur and start acting like an owner of your future. You see how discipline pays off. You see how compounding quietly rewards the patient. And once you've seen that, you can't unsee it. That's the point where money starts working harder than you do. Your savings generate returns. Your returns generate more returns. It's no longer just you grinding for progress. Now you've got leverage. That's the beauty of compounding. It's slow, invisible, and brutally demanding in the beginning. But once it crosses the threshold, it starts to feel like gravity working in your favor. $1 saved at the start feels meaningless. 100,000 saved feels like a milestone. But 100,000 working for you, that's the beginning of financial autonomy. After the first 100,000, something magical happens. You stop being obsessed with earning and start being obsessed with deploying. Every decision becomes a question of allocation, not survival. You're no longer trapped in the earn, spend, regret cycle that ruins most people. That's when you start thinking strategically. How do I protect this capital? How do I grow it safely? How do I avoid the stupidity that takes it all away? You start caring less about getting rich quick and more about staying rich slow. And that's the turning point, from being a saver to being an investor. Most people never get there because they're too addicted to comfort. But if you fought to save your first 100,000, you've already proven you can do uncomfortable things. Now you just have to keep doing them, but smarter. You begin to see the world differently. Inflation, debt, taxes, they stop being abstract ideas and start being predators to defend against. You start reading, learning, thinking. You begin to value simplicity over excitement, patience over action, quality over noise. You also develop a quiet confidence. When you have a financial cushion, life's small emergencies stop feeling like catastrophes. The car breaks down, you fix it. The job market shifts, you adapt. The market dips, you buy more. You stop living in panic mode. And the irony is, financial peace doesn't come from abundance. It comes from control. That's what the first 100,000 gives you. Control over your time, your emotions, your decisions. You stop being desperate, and that alone makes you smarter. You'll notice how people around you still act the same. They're chasing fads, complaining about money, drowning in debt. Meanwhile, your wealth grows quietly, no noise, no drama. You start to realize the real power of money is in the silence it buys. After the first 100,000, wealth accumulation becomes less about effort and more about endurance. It's about staying in the game, avoiding big mistakes, and letting time do the heavy lifting. It's about resisting the temptation to optimize everything when doing nothing is the better strategy. And once your money starts compounding meaningfully, you'll laugh at how small your old goals were. You'll realize how close financial freedom really is once you stop interrupting your own progress. Warren and I built Berkshire Hathaway using the same principle. We made our capital sacred. We protected it from stupidity. We reinvested every dollar we could, and eventually it grew into something extraordinary. Not because we were geniuses, but because we didn't let compounding be disturbed. That's the secret no one wants to hear. After the first 100,000, the game becomes easier, but only for those who stop playing it emotionally. You don't need to get faster. You need to get steadier. Your job from here is simple. Stay humble, stay rational, and never, ever interrupt compounding unnecessarily. The same discipline that built your first 100,000 will build your first million. The math doesn't change. Only your patience does. And once you truly understand that, you'll stop chasing wealth altogether. You'll start attracting it. Let me tell you something most people never figure out. Money is supposed to buy freedom, not status, but almost everyone trades it for the opposite. They think the goal is to look successful, drive the expensive car, live in the big house, collect the shiny toys. In doing that, they chain themselves to a lifestyle they can't escape. I've seen it all. People with 7 figures in the bank, still miserable, still comparing, still terrified of losing what they can't even enjoy. That's not freedom. That's a gold-plated cage. The purpose of building wealth, especially that first 100,000, isn't to show off. It's to stop needing permission, to stop depending on luck or employers or the kindness of strangers. It's to live on your own terms and think independently. When you reach financial independence, your brain changes. You stop making short-term decisions for survival and start making long-term decisions for meaning. You start asking better questions. What kind of life do I actually want? Who do I respect enough to work with? What problems are worth solving? And that's where the real joy is, not in abundance, but in autonomy. I never wanted yachts or private jets. I wanted freedom of thought, the right to say no to stupid people, and the right to spend my time doing something worthwhile. Money simply gave me that right. People misunderstand the game. They think getting rich will change who they are. It doesn't. It just exposes you. If you're foolish when you're broke, you'll be a catastrophe when you're rich. If you're disciplined when you're broke, wealth will amplify that discipline. The world worships income, but it should worship control, because control over time, over choices, over thoughts, that's the ultimate dividend of wealth. Warren once said, if you can't be happy with 50,000, you won't be happy with 50 million. He's right, because happiness isn't about the number. It's about the relationship you have with the number. Saving your first 100,000 teaches you that relationship. It humbles you. It shows you the price of freedom and the cost of foolishness. It forces you to earn what others inherit and value what others waste. And when you get there, you'll realize something that the broke never will. Wealth isn't measured in possessions. It's measured in options. The option to rest when you're tired, to walk away from nonsense, to spend your time wisely instead of selling it cheaply. Money, in the end, is just stored effort. You trade hours for dollars and send those dollars out to work so you don't have to. The more of them you deploy wisely, the more life you buy back. But if you spend every dollar you earn, you're not buying freedom. You're renting it, and rent is due every month until you die. So here's my final piece of advice. Forget trying to impress people who don't care about you. Forget chasing wealth for applause. Focus on building independence, quietly, patiently, relentlessly. You'll know you're getting there when you stop caring about keeping up and start caring about staying free. The goal was never fortune. It was never fame. It was freedom. And the first 100,000, that's just the down payment on your independence.